get bad fans, man. We get bad hockey fans here.
How do you define that?
Well, you know what? And actually, I shouldn't even say that. It's the most irritating thing. I'm a football guy, right? I played football in the Canadian League my whole life. I cover the Seahawks. I go party with you guys at Super Bowls. I'm not a hockey guy, and that's all people talk about up here all year long. And it's stuff that doesn't make sense, and everybody's just so immersed in it.
What about soccer? Soccer's huge up there in that part of the country now.
You know what?
In the Pacific Northwest.
It's big, but it's not. It's not. Doesn't compete with hockey or the NFL or even the CFL. Soccer's growing. Soccer's a global game, and I think it's awesome to see what's happening with it. You look at cities like Portland, who plays in my old college stadium down there.
And Portland State, Portland State, eh? But you weren't born in Canada. You're an American, right?
I am. Yeah, I grew up in Vancouver, but I've lived kind of half and half. I was born not too far from you guys, but grew up here.
Well, you keep dissing Vancouver, they're going to deport you out of BC, man.
I'm not
they're not going to allow you over the border,
no.
pal.
Hey, don't think I diss Vancouver. This is the greatest city in the world. This is you're asking if it's snowing. Man, it doesn't snow here. I'm in shorts and flip flops. I might get rained on, but it's not cold here. It's we're on the West Coast.
I know exactly. I've been to Vancouver. I've been to Seattle. I know it. It just rains all the time. That's why the grunge started. That's why everybody's depressed and has to drink Starbucks.
No, that's why we got beautiful big green trees and big mountains and ocean. Hey, you got to pay for it somehow, man.
I love Vancouver. I actually tried to move to the Penticton-Kelowna Valley area.
Yeah, we talked about that in Miami this year. Yeah.
This is good chit-chat about the BC. Man. Harry, come on, man. You got to like the Pacific Northwest up there, the beautiful giant redwoods.
No, it rains too much.
It does rain too much for me.
It's beautiful. Yeah. You should see where I'm going today. I sell real estate for a living. I'm going to send you guys a link. I'm going up to this lodge I'm selling in a place called Desolation Sound. Mm-hmm. If you don't like that, well, then again, you're from Philly. There's no cheesesteaks up there. There's no filth.
Desolation Town, that's pretty much every city in this country right now.
No kidding. Yeah, a buddy of mine made a comment about that last week. Like, Desolation Sound, that sounds about right now. Is it as weird in Philly as it is everywhere else?
Yes.
Dead?
Yeah, I mean, Harry, see, I'm in my basement, Chris, the wine cellar, but Harry drives in and we do the show here every day. We socially distance.
Yeah.
We're probably, if there were ambassadors walking by and looking into the window,
we're in violation.
We're about 4.5 feet apart here, so we would have somebody in here with a scope. Mm-hmm. Probably there'd be a red dot on Harry's forehead if somebody walked by, and there's one of those professional ambassador snitches that are out there now.
So Pennsylvania is not about to open right up again?
Hell no.
Hell no.
No.
We can't even open all the liquor stores here.
Yeah.
It's an
I heard
outrage.
you talking about that. That's like being in Canada. You got to go to a government liquor store.
It's an outrage. That's why I hate the Canadians up there. That's why I will never, ever allow those people to come down here except Don Collins, and I'm going to get him out of this country, too. Get him out of the Bay Area and send him back north of the border.
You know what? You send Don to me. I'll take care of him.
All right, now football. You mentioned the CFL.
One of the all-time great guys.
No, he's great. I just bust his job. Now, the question is, the CFL, because we know the NFL, what they're doing. We know what the sports leagues in this country. Obviously, there's a lot of good teams. The Raptors had another good year despite losing their guys. So the NBA fans are ready, especially teams that are in contention. What about the CFL? Are they going to play? Have they made any decisions up there?
I know they're not starting on time. I mean, the CFL they'd be in camp. They'd be in training camp now. I am legitimately concerned. I love that league. Played in it for a long time. Love talking with you guys about Philly connections to guys that I played with and that I know from up here. But I'm concerned about it. The CFL is a great league with a much longer history even than the NFL. A lot of people don't know that. But the league just doesn't produce the kind of revenue that the NFL does, and I'm not sure what's going to happen if they can't play. And I don't know, I got people, everybody's got an idea, but I think anybody who thinks they know what's going to happen or they know a timeline for when we're going to be back playing sports, whether it's in outdoor stadiums in Canada or hockey rinks or basketball courts or NFL stadiums or college football. I don't think anybody knows.
What about for hockey? Is the fan base up there and the people in and around the sport, like people in the sport?
Yeah.
Do they seem to have a more of an optimistic lean that the sport will come back this summer with the playoffs, or the opposite?
I think again, everybody's got an opinion, but I don't see how they do it unless they do it. Like, I think hockey's a game you could, if you had to, you could play that sport. You could sell that sport without fans in the stands. Mm-hmm. It's one of the few that I think you could get away with that. It's obviously not going to be the same. And the big thing I think that this will come down to, at least as much as anything else, is money, right? Can they afford to operate in empty arenas? With any of these sports, I think they can come back and play. You can manage that, especially a sport like hockey or basketball that has small rosters. But other sports, how do you put fans in the stands? How do you make enough money without having fans in the stands? I think that's going to be one of the big issues. The thing, like, hockey's not going anywhere. It might not be back for a while, but at least in the prime market, it's not going anywhere. I might be a little worried if I was in Phoenix or Carolina or something like that. But it's not going anywhere in Philly, I'm sure.
Now, and the interesting point you make about the CFL, because you guys can't start the season in September because you can't play outside after November or December up there. That's why they start their season much earlier, so you can, even though there's some domes, there's only two dome stadiums in the entire league.
There's two now. Yeah. And you know what? Hey, I played in a Grey Cup, our version of the Super Bowl in Winnipeg in the end of November. And if you've ever been in Winnipeg at any time, you don't want to go back. But if you've been there in the end of November, you don't want to be there. It's minus 18. There's plenty of games been played in horrible weather, but you can play a couple of playoff games just like the NFL. I mean, the NFL's had lots of games like that, right? It gets as cold in lots of NFL cities as it does in any of the CFL cities, but you can't play half the season in Saskatchewan and Montreal outside. And the other thing about that, let's be honest, is you're competing with the NFL and with college football, right? They've been trying to move the CFL season back a month for years now to get to have the season and have the playoffs end and the Grey Cup played either in the end of October or early November. So there's less competition with the NFL.
All right, lots of people, including myself and the folks on the Twitch stream, want to know how Chris got the nickname Disco.
Well, this is the first I've heard of it, so I don't know.
The only guy I knew was called Disco.
I don't remember. It's one of the Super Bowls we've been to.
Maybe because you go out and party like it's 1999 now.
Everybody on the Twitter, we weren't the ones that came up with it. People were calling, that's Disco Burns.
Well, hey, you know what? You guys have been there when I've been partying like it was 1999 for several years now. So, I don't know.
But you guys up there in that part of the country, I mean, you have to drink 24, and you have to drink normally, but especially now. Has your alcohol intake increased during this pandemic?
You know what? It hasn't. I don't think it has. See, things have changed for me in the last several months. You may remember shortly before Super Bowl this year, I got married. And I got married to a girl who's professionally fit and doesn't drink a whole lot. So my consumption at home since we met has gone down considerably. It's not, it's only funny what happens when you get older. When her parents come over, we drink. But other than that, it's gone down. There've been a couple of nights, when I got my one buddy, familiar name, Bart Hull, from the famous Hull hockey family.
I heard of them, yeah. Yeah, Marty, Mark, and Brad, and Marty, and that's of course, that's the Hull family.
Yeah.
The Hull family was, of course. And listen, I was up in Winnipeg when the dad,
when
Bobby Hull was slapping the shots, breaking glass, breaking masks, breaking bones up there, man.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He comes over once in a while, and we sit in the backyard, and you know, we try to relive the Jaws and Ditka cigar party.
I'll tell you.
My wedding gift from our good friend the Modes, my co-host in Vancouver, gave me a box of these amazing Cuban cigars. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I got to smoke them now. So I got to invite people over to drink whiskey and smoke cigars in the backyard. So that's our Corona booze consumption.
Do you have ambassadors up there? Does Trudeau have people like ratting people out and snitching people out and throwing you in the hoosegow if you're smoking a cigar too close to a buddy when you're having a cold one?
You know, not really. And I got to say, I so appreciate you bringing back the term hoosegow.
Well, that's important.
Oh, it's a beautiful word.
I agree.
Derived from a Latin term, I believe. But we were down. You got to get out of the house and get a little exercise. We were down at the beach, walking, just walking, trying to stay out of people's way down by the seawall. And there were these people walking around with like what looked like a giant pool noodle, and it apparently is a spacer, like a thing to determine whether or not you're 6 feet apart. And I don't think they're arresting people or anything, but they're like going up to people and whacking them with this pool noodle to show them how far apart they're supposed to be. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. But
somebody whacks me with a pool noodle. If I'm walking on the beach and somebody whacks me with a pool noodle, they're going to be held down like a mob scene. Yeah. I'm trying to think, what mob movie was somebody drowned right there at the very beginning in the water and you hold them down and you keep hold? That's pretty much every mob movie, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how it works?
Yeah.
Chris, I was suggesting that they enlist nuns to do this because the nuns have not had that job for such a long time
Nuns
now.
don't even know how to hit anybody anymore,
No,
Robin. That's old school.
But the whole old school.
Kid, I can relate.
Yeah, they used to have the ruler dances. They would be so excited to be able to do this again.
But I don't think nuns even teach anymore. All the Catholic schools have been shut down.
Yeah.
Nuns back in the day, that's what they did, and they kicked your ass.
Yeah. Well, it's the Christian Brothers that taught me that screwed it up for the nuns.
They made a nice cheap champagne, too, the Christian Brothers. Ever have it?
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Oh, I stayed away from that. I wouldn't have trusted them to produce that.
What about the Capuchin monks, though? Do you trust the Capuchin monks to make quality brew?
Oh, the monks make the best
they make
beer.
great beer,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have an old history in Belgium to produce a solid brew.
Oh, the Trappist beer.
The
My
Trappist.
God.
Not the Strappists.
Oh, no.
Those are the people here running the state of Pennsylvania. Talking with Chris Burns, raconteur, Canadian/American, Vancouver, BC guy, going up to some. What's the name of the place again?
The place is called Humphrey Lodge, Desolation Sound.
Desolation Sound.
I'll post some pictures about it. I'll post some pictures.
Desolation Sound. That's
Desolation Angels was a good Bad Company record.
That's great knowledge there.
Now, aren't you going to ask him your question, Harry?
What's that?
Whether he could get you into a good golf course up there?
I'm not going to Canada.
Oh, what do you mean?
No, I'm not going to Canada.
What are you talking about, Harry?
No. I'm out on Canada.
Oh, you don't know what you're missing.
Have you been to Vancouver?
No, I have not.
Yeah, okay. So your image of Canada is very different.
Yes.
From reality.
I'm thinking Toronto and Montreal.
Oh, no.
Toronto is like Philly to Los Angeles, right? Like Toronto to Vancouver is like Philly to Los Angeles. Not that you necessarily want to go to Los Angeles, but actually Vancouver's like a more beautiful Seattle.
Oh, okay. But still, it rains a lot.
It rains a lot, yeah. Yeah, you're going to melt?
But it does. You know what? It doesn't rain as much as Seattle.
You don't have to shovel rain.
That's a good point.
Exactly. So, Chris, you're still doing your show up there, right? So, what are you talking about up in Canada with the CFL impending doom and no hockey for a while? So, I mean, what else you guys talk about?
We're talking. I mean, to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of CFL stuff to talk about these days. They just had their draft a little while ago, but people are still talking NFL, and we do the pre and post game for the Seahawks and cover them pretty close. So there's lots of NFL stuff to talk about. Lots going on with the Seahawks. I'm trying to figure out how they're going to find a way to sign Jadeveon Clowney.
They're not, by the way. Breaking news. This just in. It doesn't appear that's going to happen.
It doesn't look good, but I have the the biggest man crush on that guy. I think he is. I think he's arguably the best and the most underrated defender in football. And if it was up to me, there's no way I wouldn't sign that guy. But it doesn't look real good. But I don't know who's going to take him. Why is he still sitting there?
Well, because
he
you got
wants
bidding.
too much money.
Yeah, the Eagles are. There's a bunch of teams that are in the running.
A couple teams would love to have
the
him.
Eagles. Anybody'd like to have him. Anybody'd like to have the guy. I go all Brian Baldinger on you, sit down and watch film and break down why that guy is worth everything you're going to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is he didn't put up sack numbers. I don't think he was trying to get sacks last year. I don't think he's going to get what he wants. And the other thing is, there's not all those other teams out there. He doesn't fit anywhere. He doesn't have as much of an impact on any of those teams that he does in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. They ought to find a way. But in this day and age, especially right now, like, people are wondering why are all these quarterbacks sitting around. I wouldn't be paying a quarterback right before a season. You don't even know if they're going to play. Like Dak Prescott, does he think somebody's going to stroke him a check for, tens of millions of dollars when, they might not play this season?
Yeah, he'll get the franchise tag if nothing. He already has it. Unless they work out a deal. But does Seattle? I mean, what's their cap situation? Are they strapped?
I think they have room, and they just cut couple really expensive offensive linemen. DJ Fluker, which wasn't a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised they released Justin Britt, their center, who got hurt last year, but he's a stud. And my thought when they did that was they were freeing up some room. But it sounds like they said right away, that's not what we're doing. We're not freeing up room to sign Clowney. But my understanding is if they got a deal done, they could make the room and sign him. And I mean, there's a part of me that thinks they're just waiting. They're just, both sides. He's not in a hurry. And I think Seattle has said, look, we want you. Here's what we can offer you. Go see if you can get a better deal somewhere. And then this one, they've never said we're out. There was an article or a report a couple weeks ago that they were given, I think it was Jaron Reed, who had worn number 90 before, that, he'd gotten his number back. So everybody thought of, and to be honest with you, when I heard that, I thought, well, that's it. He's not coming back if they're doing that. But then the club came out and said that's not quite accurate. I think there's a chance that he's going to test it and see, and then if somebody doesn't step up, then he'll fall back in Seattle.
And finally, the last question, because people are inundating our social media. Curling, what is the status of curling and the curling cougar and any kind of potential winter activity in the fall when the ice starts, when they start shoveling and
sweeping
the ice?
Yeah.
I am the TSN curling expert. Full-on curling coverage, 24/7 at the Burns house. I do feel like that is a sport that you could probably do and social distance. Any sport like that where you can drink Canadian Club while performing, I feel like that's sort of sanitizing everything. So
yep.
I would expect that curling, full on, no delays, right back on the what do they call it? They call it a sheet.
The sheet, yes.
I think they call it a sheet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Back out there sweeping and throwing rocks.
I watch curling because it's the only time I see women with brooms anywhere in my household because Miss Robin doesn't like to clean.
Hey, you know what? If I was
Now that was awesome.
with the kind of money you're making these days, Tony, just hire a cleaner.
No.
I'm the cleaner.
Yes.
I'm the cleaner, like the guy in the movie that would go in after the bodies were dead. Who was the cleaner in there was one
Pulp
character.
Fiction.
Was he the cleaner, the guy that went in?
Harvey
Keitel. It's his
Keitel.
birthday today,
It
too.
is?
Harvey
Mr. Wolf.
Keitel's birthday today.
Oh, wow.
Wow. How about that? I
Then
think
there was
Miss
a fixer,
Robin
too.
should go out and hire some, 21-year-old Latin, ripped, long-haired Latin immigrant.
Chick.
Or a local Philly guy.
Nah, we don't want any grease balls in this house. We got enough already,
come on.
man. I don't want any South Philly grease balls coming into this
You're a
house.
reformed grease ball, though, aren't you?
I'm a reformed greaseball.
We're already over our quota.
Oh, wow.
Well,
I'll
Chris.
stay away then, I promise.
Hey, Chris, it's great to catch up
before you
with
go,
you. What?
Chris, I have a way to describe Vancouver and surrounding areas to Harry that he might, and correct me if you think that this is about right. Imagine the San Francisco Bay and the surrounding areas plop down in the middle of Tahoe.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
That is the Vancouver surrounding areas.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, you guys are making me crazy now. I'm stuck in a basement here.
But there's no poop on the streets from San
Correct.
Francisco and Vancouver.
Yeah, there's
There's definitely not. And
Okay.
there's some other things that are a little cleaner, and definitely a much cleaner city. I'm
It's
a big
beautiful,
fan of San
seriously.
Francisco, but a much cleaner city, that's for sure.
But the good news is the Portland Naked Bike Race will occur this year. They
That
are
is
not
correct.
postponing the Portland Naked Bike Ride.
Yeah.
They
That's one of the
might
all-time
require
great events.
masks,
You
but
have to wear a
nothing else.
mask, but nothing else.
No drawers, but masks.
Exactly right.
Masks and gloves.
Chris Burns, you can follow him
Holy
on that Twitter thing up there.
Yes, at Chris Burns 55.
And it's spelled
right.
normally, right?
Oh, is that
Burns.
what it is?
That's
At
right.
Chris Burns 55.
And
Yes, sir.
even if he didn't have the name Disco Burns before, we're giving it to him now.
All right.
Thanks so
To
much,
you guys,
Chris.
I'll accept it. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
There he is, the great Chris Burns joining us. A lot of fun.